Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. If you've noticed now, I've been working with one instance of SQL Server at this time. And what I mean by that is on my physical box, I only have installed SQL Server once, and that is an instance. Well, in a production environment, you're not only going to be working with one instance, but you may be working with many physical boxes. And upon those physical boxes, you may have many instances of SQL Server. And within those SQL Server instances, you may have many databases. Well, if we need to manage all those hundreds and hundreds of databases and those many physical servers, it's going to become extremely tedious to manage them one by one. So how can you circumvent that, and how can you make it life more easier when you have to manage so many servers? Well, one of the ways certainly you could do this is, for example, if you needed to execute a store procedure on all the servers that is identical, then you can certainly script out the store procedure and go through each physical box, go through each SQL server and start executing those store procedures. But even that's going to become extremely tedious. So how do you circumvent that? Well, one of the great ways of doing it is using what's called a multi-server administration, which was, I believe, presented in 2008 version. So what is multi-server administration? Well, again, as I said, when you have multiple SQL servers that need exactly the same SQL agent job or maintenance jobs created and you want to propagate them, then obviously the multi-server administration property of the SQL agent comes in handy. So rather than creating scripts and running them on each server, we just let the multi-server administration do this for us. So again, it's centralized. And obviously this is a very useful option to have when you need to run and the same jobs or maintenance jobs. And that's what I'm going to be demonstrating to you right now. There are a few requisites in setting up the Central Server Management Studio. And one is that you have to register all your SQL servers under SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio. And then you can create server groups if necessary for collective administration. For example, if you have SQL servers that are for finance, then you can create a group called finance and place all the relevant SQL servers under that group. And if you have one for sales, you can do the same thing. And then obviously when we can go to the SQL agent, you set the SQL agent so that you select one of the servers to become a master, and then the rest of them become what's called targets. So let's continue. One of the things I've noticed is that when I was setting up this master-target relationship, I did get this error. And the error says this. And so if you get this error, the way to fix it is you have to go to your registry and change a few options. So if you do get an error such as this, what you need to do is go to Run and type in regedit. When you go regedit, go OK. When you click that, you're going to get this window presented. Go to your local H key local machine, then click on Software, then click on Microsoft. Scroll all the way down. Then click on the instance. In this case, my instance is SQL Server 1. Then click on SQL Agent, and then click on Max Cached Operations, and double-click that. You'll see a value. I believe it was 2. You'll need to change it to a 0. So change that, whatever that value is there, 1 or 2, and change it to 0 and go OK. So make sure you do that if you get that error, and you will have to do that for each instance you have on that physical box or each instance on the separate box. So I repeated it for SQL Server 2, exactly what I did here, and I repeated it for SQL Server 3. So make sure you do that for each instance. Okay, so let's get to SQL Server. You'll notice now that I have one instance, and this is my SQL Server 1, as you can see. And what I'm going to do now is connect to my 2 other instances. And so I'm going to go Connect, Database Engine, and I'm going to select 2. Now, how did I get this second instance? Well, all I did was install SQL Server again. So this time, all you have to do is just follow the instruction of how to install SQL Server and just leave it to defaults. You don't have to worry about mapping data files or log files as we did in the production environment, and you don't have to worry about service accounts. Just continue installing it default and until you're successful. And that's how I got second. So I'm going to connect to that. Now I'm going to go connect, database engine, and select another instance. And how did I get that third instance? Well, I again installed another instance of SQL Server. So now that I have 3. So one thing you'll notice now is that the first thing we do in order to utilize the central management system is to register all these 3 servers. So how do you do that? Go to View and go Register Servers. Here you'll notice we have local servers group. So on that, right click and go New Server Registration. And then select one. I'm going to select the first one and you can test it. And go Save. And now what I'm going to do now is go Central Management Server. I'm going to go Register Central Management Server. And I'm going to take the first one and go Save. Now within that, this is going to be my master server. And within that, I'm going to have 2 target servers, Server 2 and Server 3. So this is the one that's going to be the leading server. So I'm going to right click and go New Server Registration. New Server Registration. And I'm going to select 2 and save. And then I'm going to repeat the same process. New Server Registration. And I'm going to select 3 and save. So what that means now is that of the 3 servers that I have, this one, the desktop, consider it 1. This one's going to be, I'm going to configure this to be my master, and these 2 are going to be the target, and this is within this group. So now that I've registered them, I can close this and go here. So now on my first server, go to SQL Agent and right click, go to Multi-Server Administration and say make this a target. And this window will pop up. And this just tells you that this one is going to become a master server, and go next. It's going to ask for the operator for the email address so we can get email accounts just like we did for database mail. So I've entered my email and go next. Now it's asking for the register server that you just registered. Which one do you want them to be targets? So obviously under this one, select this. Push it to the right, select this, and push it to the right. So these 2, Server 2 and Server 3, are going to behave as target servers. Go next. And it's successful. Close. And it's going to create an operator, MS login. So say next. It's going to go through the completion and just say finish. And obviously we're successful. We can close. One thing you'll notice immediately is that SQL Agent on the main computer has got MSX next to it. And then if you look at the SQL Agent for 2 and 3, they've got TSS representing target. So now these are targets, these are, and this is master. So whatever SQL Agent job I do now here will be propagated to these 2. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create a database. So the other thing you'll notice is if I click here, or actually click on the agent, on the master, you'll see that I have a folder now called multi-server job. So what I'm going to do now is selecting multi-server job. I'm going to, well, let me demonstrate one more thing here. If you look at the databases here, I don't have a database called new. So what I'm going to utilize is I'm going to utilize my central management SQL agent to create a job, to create a database for every single database that I'm concerned with. So I'm going to go right click on the multi. I'm going to go new job. The window pops up like you've seen. I'm going to call this new DB. I'm going to go steps, new. We'll call it new DB again. And this time I'm going to say create database new. That's it. So remember, this job is being created. This job is being created oops, I must specify masters. That's true. So here are the masters. And so you select masters, select select the targets, and select which one do you want to have that newly designed database. So I'm going to select both of them and go OK. So now you see a job has been created in the multi-server job. And as soon as I execute this, you'll notice that, again, if I refresh this here, I do not have a database called new. As soon as I right-click and start the job, it's successful. So what did that do? Well, hopefully it created a new database called new on both of them. It does take a few seconds to propagate, so don't think of it. If I expand that, and go down here also, and expand that, there's the new database job. If I refresh this, there's the new database job. So it does take a couple of seconds to propagate, but if I go to the databases and refresh, you'll see that I have a new database here on server 2, and if I refresh this on server 3, I have it here also. So that's a great way of managing multiple databases when you need to repeat the same process using multi-server jobs. So again, this is a great benefit if you're in an environment where you have many databases. When would you use this property? Well, if you have a few databases, it's really not beneficial to you. But if you're using anywhere from 15, 20, 30 servers, and you have many servers, then this is a highly advantageous to you. So I have used it before when I was managing about 15 to 20 physical boxes, and I had about 5 or 10 servers, some databases on each one. So that became quite cumbersome. And this property allowed me to manage multiple servers at the same time. So again, this is a great benefit of SQL Agent, and it's a great feature to have. So I'll leave it there, and we'll pick it up in the next video. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator.